Hey, good day. All this is Patrick Level Truth Bomb riffing on what is it? Tuesday, July 25th, approximately 10 a.m. my time, and just a quick one to kind of encapsulate what my brain and my body is just on fire about, considering everything that we're in the midst of. I'm going to start with tomorrow. Millions of people are going to tune in to a congressional hearing that was set forward by this representative out of Tennessee who is attempting to put a couple of witnesses, three witnesses to be exact, David Grush, David Fravor, Lieutenant Graves, all to be interviewed under oath in front of Congress about what they observed and witnessed and what they know as whistleblowers as it relates to the so-called UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon, and UFO stuff that goes back to Roswell in 1947. And of course, this guy Grush, and it'll be interesting to hear what he has to say in front of Congress tomorrow. Even though I watched the Newsmax interview a few times, and I'm like, I don't even know what to think about this guy, other than the fact that he's saying things that a lot of people want to hear. But I don't know exactly what his legitimacy is, but it just brings to mind, really what I think you need to try to wrap your head around, especially if this isn't your space. So, like I've mentioned in a previous Truth Bomb, yeah, I've been following the UFO UAP thing for a long time because I had an experience back in 1991. Okay, there's that. But what this is all about in terms of semantics and what's trying to happen both with media and within politics and the way things work is that this guy named Jeremy Corbell, who is this filmmaker who's kind of a silly dude who I actually like a lot. I think he cracks me up. He makes me laugh. He's like me, my generation, surfer kind of guy, whatever. But he ended up, getting an audience, and he works with a guy who's been out there doing this thing for a long time, a dude by the name of George Knapp. Ideologically, I'm probably not aligned with George Knapp. Doesn't matter. I kind of dig his style. I dig what they're coming from and what they've done throughout the years, particularly as it relates to Area 51 and all that business. But regardless of all of that, what they were able to accomplish is they found somebody that was going to champion the elements that they've been bringing to the people through Joe Rogan and others. And they've reached tens of millions of people, and there's a huge appetite and audience for this stuff. And they're trying to put Congress on the record to try to pull out whatever the Pentagon or the national security state might be hiding. Because it's pretty obvious to anybody who's been paying attention, there's plenty of questions to ask, and there's plenty of technical expertise that'll be through these guys who are whistleblowers and witnesses that are incredibly trained and intelligent people. I don't know about Grush, but I definitely do know about Fravor and Graves. And they're legit. And are they've been telling us the same thing for a long time, or for the last 4 or 5 years? Yeah, absolutely. Is there more? Yeah, let me tell you how much more. There's a guy by the name of Stephen Greer who did this, like, sort of congressional-esque like hearing in Washington, D.C. I think at this, what was it? Oh God, I can't remember what the platform was that they rented to be able to have, like, I don't know, over several hundred witnesses talk about, all sorts of different things over the course of the last 20, 30, 40 years that, Stephen Greer has an angle on. And then, there's more. I came across some stuff over the weekend where there was another congressional like hearing in DC, featuring people from all over South America that had incredible testimony. And, what does it all mean? Well, it wasn't until the New York Times picked up the story in 2017 that it gave legitimacy, that then started to elevate this stuff, that elevated more sort of questions and pressing against the establishment of, like, what's going on here. And meanwhile, they do bring up the pressing a question, which is legitimate. There are billions of dollars a year that disappear in the Pentagon, and where's it going to? Could it be potentially in this sphere? Oh, yeah, maybe. Who knows? We'll see. I don't know if they'll be able to pull out any more information tomorrow morning than we've already seen a million times, but it's certainly a push, and it's a coordinated push to be able to reveal that which government is hiding. Now, compare and contrast that to what I've been trying to tell you this whole time. Okay, am I a self-proclaimed UFO expert? No, I'm not. I think it's interesting stuff, and I have a fascination with it, and it's mostly cursory, kind of like a, like, what is it called when you I don't know. It's just something like, like I'd have drinks and on a late Friday night and watch Ancient Aliens, and it's something that I enjoy. Okay, whatever, big deal. So what I am is a muckraker journalist that understands financial fraud and massive financial fraud, the largest fraud in the history of the world that I put together in the con at www.thecon.tv that's now available for free, that reveals what the entire apparatus of government both revealed to us, but then also hid. And the same can be said of mainstream media, all of which are part and parcel to the same thing. What am I revealing to you? What did we do in the con that gives you all of the details of everything that 90% of you, 99% of you aren't aware of? Well, I'll tell you what you're not aware of. We had a scheme, a global racketeering Ponzi scheme led by our financial sector that broke the law over hundreds of millions of times in beyond comprehension documentation fabrication to create this pipeline of basically bullshit that blew up the world, and that when it blew up the world, it led to literally $29 trillion being illegally backdoored by the Federal Reserve to the actual financial system that destroyed millions upon millions of people. Now, here's the demarcation zone, okay? What it did was we gave, ultimately, not just because of 2009, but because of stuff that happened in 2019, stuff that happened pre-COVID, stuff that happened during COVID with our financial policy and the Federal Reserve policy that never happened in the history of the United States, not nearly to the level that it did post 2009 and ever since, where we gave tens of trillions of dollars to billionaires and to multinational corporations. And oh yeah, military industrial type stuff too, that's in the mix, okay? Trillions upon trillions of dollars to the most powerful and rich individuals and operations in our society. That's what we did. While we bulldozed tens of millions of people illegally that constituted basically middle class to the poor. And the poor, I'll just say this about the poor in our society. And I've said this in a bunch of, Twitter, feeds and things I've mentioned publicly many times, that the poor in this country are expendable. The only crime that has consequences in this country is poverty. No, literally, they have zero sort of protection. The system will bulldoze poor people by the millions into oblivion because poor people cannot defend themselves. And quite frankly, poor people, I don't know if it's a correlation. I'm sure it is. I'm sure there's a lot of poor people that actually have college educations, that are very smart, that really know a lot about a lot, but maybe fell on hard times for whatever reason. But I think a vast majority of poor people don't have the education or the knowledge of how the system is supposed to work and works. And that's what I'm trying to break through. And my audience aren't people that are in the streets that are, drug addicts because they've fallen from, wherever they fell from for whatever reason they fell from. Because when you're in that state, you can't fight back. You're just trying to survive. And you have to depend on others to help you to survive. And it sucks. And a lot of people can get reformed and they can go through the system and they can come back and they can come back strong. And kudos to anybody who's bounced back from, massive, failure. Not by their own, or who knows what the circumstances are. But we had a calamitous nationwide systemic failure that is the basically consequence of 4 decades of a system that just doesn't work, and it's not sustainable. And what are we in the midst of right now? Well, the revelations are coming at us fast and furious about all sorts of climate consequences that look to me like it could be the end of the road. It's 2023, people. This isn't 1987. This isn't 1970. I mean, we've had this information forever. And it seems like the closer we get to be able to understanding all the problems and solving the problems, the system moves the goalposts because of corruption and, this system of what I've revealed to you in the last 10 years of work between my films Forward 13, Waking Up the American Dream, and of course, The Con. But what that means is we live in a corporate fascist state undergirded by a criminal syndicate that uses socialism to basically guarantee the mafiocracy and then creates and fuels fascism. all of which are just completely unacceptable. So I started off with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp and their relentless questioning, even though so many other people are going after it and everything else. They've been successful enough with media partners to be able to ask questions about a topic that millions of people are interested in. And will it resolve, the question marks that are out there? It's a work in progress, I'm sure. It'll be interesting to see where it goes from here, but at least they're pressing. And I have to admit, there's plenty of things that I think are ridiculous as well in that whole space. But the bottom line is they're proving that it's possible that when you orchestrate a sort of concerted effort that you can actually manifest results, okay? They really are. Meanwhile, look, people, I've said this on Twitter. I've said this in my truth bombs. I'll say this until the cows come home. You need to understand that in 2023, no one understands what it is that I'm revealing to you. I mean, again, do you think it's okay that billionaires got free money by the tune of tens of trillions illegally, including our financial system, to bury tens of millions of people using the courts to actually promulgate documentation fabrication to the tune of tens of millions? Now, look, if you watch MSNBC and you're anti-Trump and you're all up in arms because you know, based on what Lawrence Tribe is saying on Lawrence O'Donnell, that the judge, Eileen Cannon, is compromised and, could basically muck up gum up the works of what's happening in terms of the investigations and Jack Smith's, sort of indictments of Donald Trump, including the criminal fraud exception that talks about how attorneys can lie on behalf of their clients. You believe all of that. And then, of course, you believe that the documentation fraud is a crime that was used to steal the election, that Michigan, had 16 felony counts against these guys in a conspiracy. And you're going to believe what Fani Willis comes up with in terms of the racketeering of all things, electioneering, deception and fraud on behalf of Donald Trump defrauding the United States of America. You're going to buy all of that. You're going to buy all of that. You're going to think to yourself, yeah, the Department of Justice and Merrick Garland are doing their job, and we live in a democracy, and check it out. Nobody's above the law. Meanwhile, what I'm explaining to you is Donald Trump is literally a reflection and a manifestation of everything I'm telling you to you on so many more elements that I've spent hours and hours and hours detailing, and I'll do more in the future. But for the purposes of this truth bomb, it's literally He's a gnat on the back of an ant, on the back of an elephant, on the back of a blue whale, on a tiny blue spot in comparison to the sun of the corruption of literally what I'm revealing to you in terms of Wall Street. We're talking billions of fucking pieces of data of documentation fraud because the government of the United States, through all of this smoke and mirrors, in fact, I laid this on the Twitter audience yesterday and none of you responded. It's insane. It's been revealed that former chair of the Federal Reserve had 98 meetings, secret meetings, between the collapse of Bear Stearns and then ultimately the $29 trillion emergency backstop that also definitely included quantitative easing that led to this policy over the course of the last 13 years that pumped trillions of dollars to the richest amongst us while protecting and saving a fraudulent financial system that I've demonstrated to you based on its own statutes of lender of last resort, based on how Federal Reserve Act 13.3 is supposed to be utilized, was completely utilized to backstop the largest grift in the history of the fucking world that you're doing nothing about, that buried millions of people using our legal system to do it, and you're doing nothing except working around the edges. And Elizabeth Warren proclaimed last night, oh yeah, I'm going to fight corruption. She's been doing that for 13 years to no avail because she's not fighting corruption. Same with Bernie Sanders. I challenge anybody who believes that Bobby Kennedy Jr. or Cornel West or Marianne Williamson can fight corruption. They can't. They don't even know where to begin. And they're all smart people and they all have their own come-froms. But unless you understand what I'm telling you about the Federal Reserve in context to the 2008 Great Financial Crisis, if you don't understand what happened going back to the Great Depression to create all of the elements that created what became the 2008 Great Financial Crisis and ultimately what our government is, then you can't see the forest for the trees. And I'll finish with this. So last night I'm watching this television or this movie from back in 2007. A fun kind of like thing to not think about everybody, all the problems that we're all dealing with. And it was Jackie Chan and oh God, what's the African American comedian? Anyway, it's Rush Hour 3, right? And it was in 2007. The storyline is about this murky international cabal called Triad that's involved with this giant racketeering enterprise of drug, smuggling, sex trafficking, and arms, international arms distribution or whatever. That's been going on for decades and decades and decades, by the way. And so, what are we seeing now? Jeffrey Epstein. Now, a lot of MAGAs are like, oh my God, sex trafficking and this and that and the Clintons and blood libel, while ignoring all things Donald Trump and Mar-a-Lago. And don't forget, Donald Trump met Melania through Epstein. Okay, whatever. But then we've got Chase, Jamie Dimon, and all their interscope with Jeffrey Epstein and everything else that constitutes. Look, guys, this is ridiculous that it's 2023 and you do not understand what's happened. So I'm leading a tidal wave crusade, populist crusade to purge corruption. And I'm asking you to contribute $13 because we spent $4.5 million getting the $29 trillion truth, which means if 357,000 of you contributed $13, you'd match what we've already done. And I've got all of the answers that if we had critical mass, I know all of the people who can turn this thing. If we could turn people in Congress or create a third party, and if let's say 13 million of you, which is a tiny percentage of the hundreds of millions of people that got blown up in 2008, found $13 in your whatever to be able to invest in this situation, considering, think about what you might spend your money on, Netflix and Apple or your cell phone or this or that. And yet you're trying to say, who's going to help save us? Who's going to get us there? Is it going to be Bobby Kennedy Jr.? No, it's not. He doesn't have the slightest clue about this stuff yet. And that is not a mystery to me. Unfortunately, I'm so close to this thing that I can see what he's doing and why he's not doing it. Same with Cornel West. I don't know enough about Marianne Williamson, and I could go on and on. Look, the bottom line is if we had 13 million people contribute $13, we'd start a new party to be able to challenge this and take back the power, rip the control of power for we the people and rip the control back from the corrupt, and then have accountability to basically do what we're seeing in a very, very child's play minute situation with Donald Trump. Is Donald Trump guilty? He's a pig. He is the worst of the worst. But what he's doing, I should shake his hand, fist bump him for saying thank you for showcasing over and over to the mainstream media and everybody else exactly what everybody else was doing, only monumentally bigger than you. And oh yeah, by the way, the message to Russell Brand and Matt Taibbi and everybody else when you talk about, all of the BS when it comes to Russiagate and, discounting and everything. Again, Deutsche Bank was up the ass in basically the extension of Putin straight into Donald Trump. And by the way, the final thing I'll say about Donald Trump just briefly is he sued Deutsche Bank in 2012 for being a victim of predatory lending. African-American women particularly were targets of predation and they had their houses stolen from them in a way that was the ultimate flip of the American dream. Again, we're tyranny. If you, me, and everybody you see who isn't a Nazi, who champions dignity, decency, integrity, and liberty or sustainability, and above all else, liberty and justice for all, and we merge in unity, we will defeat and triumph over the misery of tyranny because it's not rocket science, it's racketeering. And this is the clean New Deal. And by the way, I talk about all these presidential candidates because I'm not running for president, but this is a civil rights-like campaign to purge corruption. And it's the only chance we have. I think it's the end of the line. It's 2023, people. We've known about most of this stuff going back to the late 90s. Everything else has been an obfuscation. Media has hid all of this because media is now playing high school, just like Lauren Boebert or, what's her name, Lauren Ingram or Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is all vicious high school type stuff. And the stuff we're seeing on Twitter, I don't even think it's them. I think it's a bot that somebody's, putting their picture up on their account that's basically saying things that'd be part of what exactly the Russians did, by the way. Oh, thank you very much to Taibbi and everybody else, anti-Russiagate. That's exactly what they did in 2016. This is just next level. It's just, Evil people are really good at continuing like a virus to adapt. That's what they do. And same with corrupt people. Look, the truth has got to have value. And if you wrapped your head around www.thecon.tv for free, then you'd understand the blueprint of how all of this stuff works, who did what, when, and how, and who covered it up to give us what we have. And I'll finish up with this. Yeah, guys, fucking Barack Obama and Eric Holder gave us Trump. And that's whatever. Failure is not an option. Rise, war, revolt, onwards and upwards. Guys, this is the righteous grind. Again, contribute $13. You've got the money. Millions of us got to come together. You've got to believe me. Unite with me. We will overcome corruption that is destroying us all. We're not going to fix the climate problem unless we fix corruption. We're not going to fix systemic racism in our policing and in our prisons unless we fix corruption. We're not going to fix anything until we root out corruption. If you had cancer, would you nuke it? Or would you just let it overcome your body? Well, I'm talking to the people that would nuke it. Join me. Together we'll be triumphant.